I should have done the same thing that everybody else does, namely thinking it can't possibly be my problem. somebody else must have made a mistake here.
I've had a quite interesting case recently, and that is I did fix a bug in the program, in the application on my machine. The bug was actually that I had a property where I added the documents in the email. So they included the documents. And when I deleted a document and added a new one, if I was still in the same view, the property was not reset. So the document was added multiple times to the same property. And even though the actual document was deleted from the server and in the application only was shown once, it was included multiple times in the email because it was shown multiple times in the array. So I did fix that and check that it worked, because when it was done sending, I just reset the array to 0, and then if you send again, then it will start from scratch, only adding the document once. So that worked. And I uploaded it to the server, restarted the server, and then sent an email to the customer to try it out. A week later, they come back and send me an example where it does fail. But I'm not really figuring out what actually failed, because it doesn't look like the email she sends to me has failed. Only that in the text, in the document where it says what files are included, there are duplicates of the files, but I only see the file once. So I'm getting confused, because I did clear, and what I see in the email is only one copy of the document. And I go into the code and check the array function, or the array property. And it looks okay, and I can't really figure out what's wrong. And then I try to debug it myself, and I tried to test it on the server. So I add my own email address and send, and I see that the array contains the file multiple times, but I'm only getting it once. So what I figure out is that Google is actually kind enough to remove duplicate files as to save bandwidth or something. And so I tried to change it to my Hotmail address instead. And there I actually do get both files. So that was the first kind of figuring out that it actually is the same file. And then I realized that then the code must not have been updated. So I go to the server and check. And what happens on the server sometimes is that if you're not active, the remote desktop link to your local folder is kind of removed, but you can still see the folder in the desktop. So I've dragged and dropped the file over, and of course it didn't show any kind of progression bar, but sometimes it's fast enough so that you don't see that. So I just expected that the file has been copied over, but perhaps it did not. And when I restarted the application, it didn't overwrite or something like that. I'm not sure. So what I ended up doing was uploading the file once more, restarting the server and testing, and then it actually worked.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
I experienced that, precisely the same thing, that you think you copied the file and then it seems that you didn't. So I had this shell to the file the shell that I use, but I'm only using FTP now to be sure that it copied the files, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, of course, also that you were using different clients, mail clients, and it only showed on one of them.
Yeah, so the first step in debugging is actually to recreate the error or the bug in your own code.
Always. Yes.
Yeah.
If you can't reproduce the problem, you can't do anything.
It's really hard to. Otherwise, you'll have to kind of test to fix something, upload it, and let the client test it again. And but that's just annoying for the client to do that. So you want to have it in a testable situation on your local machine to work with.
Yeah, that's true. But there's also another very important issue here, that when we're testing programs, we tend to use run the programs from the IDE, whatever IDE we're using, and you should really test them outside of that environment to see if it also works outside of that sandbox environment, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, because you have everything installed and in order on your local machine where you develop the application, but when you move it to the server, you might not have all the DLLs or everything installed and all the drivers that you need. So that's definitely something you need to test in some kind of production-like environment, a test environment, or at least.
Some years ago, rather a lot of years ago, we got a debugger for DataFlex, but nobody used it because you had your own debugging techniques. You had your little trace show lines in your code here and there, and you use that kind of debugging.
I remember those days.
And they were trying very, very, very hard to persuade us to use the debugger. And now everybody's using the debugger, but now we're doing web application, and now they're trying very, very hard to tell us not to use the debugger, at least for testing purposes, because you have to test it without outside the debugging environment, because it works the same way. So we finally got it, and now we're going back.
But it's still useful for regular testing, but you should test without as well, because when you run with the debugger, you're actually constrained to one session, and if you have issues in your code that could be caused by multiple sessions having access to the same data, you will not find them if you run through the debugger. That's true.
Nope, you will, but you will find them immediately when you run out time. I mean, I've had some issues with customers. We had a program that was running for years. Just every night it downloaded some files and updated the database, and then suddenly it stopped working. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. So I began a very tedious debugging process, and in the end, I found out that the file that I uploaded was errorless. Simply, the part that supplied this file to upload had made changes without telling anyone. But I didn't expect that. So, I can see what's going on here. Maybe I should have. I should have done the same thing that everybody else does, namely thinking it can't possibly be my problem. Somebody else must have made a mistake here, but the problem is that what we usually think is that, did I do something wrong? You look inside instead of looking outside.
But I think that's also a good thing to actually look over your own code before you start to blame others. I see that too often.
fantastic. I think it would be fantastically embarrassing, you know, to blame somebody else for a fault and then you find out that it's your own bloody code.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we don't want that. The situation you're referring to, there is one customer and there's one application.
Yeah.
And you can test it with a server, you know, you can try to find out what's going on in that environment. So that's a possibility. Or you can even, if that's needed, install the debugger or develop tool on the customer's side, you know, on the production server, in order to find out easier what the problem is. Might be rights to the database or whatever, you know, you didn't really think of until you get it in the debugger. But we are also working with another company who sells a product, and that goes through an entirely different process with in-house testers and people who has a responsibility of deploying the application and so on. And the developer is not involved in that process at all.
No, but that's also where they sell the product to multiple users.
Yes, precisely. Yeah.
And we often sell to one user tailored applications.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when the user is requesting something, we do it for them and then they test it. But in this case, there might be users who request something, but there is a board who decides what goes into the application's next version.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the board or the test group is the ones who are testing the application, making sure that everything works before you install it out with the customers. Yeah. But that's also the experience I have from another customer who is quite large, even if it's the same customer we are working with. And they are actually shipping the application to about 30 countries around the world. And they also do a lot of testing before we actually release the latest version to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah. Even though it's the same company, but so it's a similar process there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we happy with this so far?
Happy. Yeah.
Yeah. See you next week. And if you as a viewer have any comments or ideas on testing or experiences, please share them in the comments below. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.